Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 103. Still got all our same conversationalists, Brett, Gabby, Erica, and myself. And following on from our previous conversation, that all of us are only going to go out of the world feet first, there is a bit of a trend, certainly in the northwest of the globe, to celebrate life. We're not here to mourn and to bury someone. This is a celebration of the life and their achievements and all of these other things, and it's a nice spin. But what on earth if you are heartbroken, sad, and all you want to do is grieve? And Erica will tell us that there's a difference between grief and mourning in a minute, but we'll get to that. Who wants to start us off?
I'm going to let other people speak first because I feel a tirade coming on and I'm just letting it brew. So I'm going to let everybody else.
It's the question of how we're dealing with grief these days, and especially in the Western world, isn't it? And I think it's really nice to say, okay, let's celebrate somebody's life, if you feel like that. But what hit at home to me about the subject was I was at a funeral and the priest very nicely said, look, celebrating somebody's lives is wonderful if you feel like it. But if you, as a griever or family, are saddened because the person was taken away quickly, you're sad, you want to cry, do so. Do not put on a fake smile, pretending, oh, let's celebrate, let's be all good and follow the trend. If what you feel inside is, no, this sucks, and I want to cry and I want to grieve. And I might celebrate their lives in 3 weeks' time, but here I'm at a funeral. I'm not going to pretend. And he gave everybody permission to actually grieve, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I never heard it from a priest ever before. And I thought, what a nice way to actually be there and give permission to everybody just to feel what they want to feel and not to have to pretend for anyone, especially because, we tend to do this these days. And, there were brothers involved who might not feel like they can permit themselves to grieve that way because men have to be strong or whatever is still out there. So I thought it was really, really nice.
I can feel Erica's tirade having petrol and other flammable substances thrown on it. It's like, give me permission to grieve. I'm going to bawl my eyes out if I want to. So I just want to stoke the flames a little higher. Brett, any thoughts?
Easy to say, grieve your eyes out, right? Some people don't know how to do that, and it's not so easy for some people. And honestly, I feel like there's a part of that is the disease within your body is kind of like where people get sick because they're not letting it out, right? And if you don't know how to let it out, then I feel like that's going to take a toll on your body. That's the disease within. Like you got to allow that out and release, so that there's room for other stuff. Without that, like being dropped off, what else can you pick up? So there's something about the allowance of, letting go.
And that's very shamanic in that outlook, talking about dis-ease being fundamental to the way we are ill, either because we have got an intrusion of energy, which could be unreleased anger, grief, anything. And so we lose our power, and that allows illness to come in. And for millennia, people have known of the healing power of tears. We now have science, thank God for science, to tell us that there's an actual process that tears give us that helps us to heal. And I can't help but think that, every funeral, every ceremony I've been to, people are sad, there's tears, and it's after, you move on to the reception, the wake, whatever you want to call it. I know it sort of works a bit differently over there for you, but then people start to tell the stories. You hear the laughter. There's still tears, every laugh and every memory probably prompts more tears as well, but there's laughter amongst the tears, and tears and laughter are two of the most healing things in the world. The community and the connection in being at the wake and having that, I think that's probably one of the most healing processes you could possibly go through. There is a degree of deserved solemnness during the ceremony and the service, and whether it's religious or non-secular, it matters not. But then afterwards, and I think that should be encouraged. Actually, I've heard of, like, please try not to cry. We don't. Erica, I feel that I am now about to unleash a beast. Forgive me, God, I know not what I created.
So I don't even know where to begin in this conversation, honestly. So Gabby, you started it off by saying, how are we dealing with grief as a society, as a whole? And Mike's straight answer to that is, we're not. We're not. We're just not. There's no space for it anywhere. So, which is why perhaps that priest, in speaking so differently than what is usually said, right, in these things, felt like giving permission, which he in fact did, right? He sort of just opened up the narrative to bring light to, if you don't fucking feel like saying, wahoo, look at how well they lived their life, actually just do whatever you feel like doing. So I applaud that, and I'm glad to hear that. But celebrations of life, I think, are great too, but perhaps there's like a timing issue here, right? Like, because if somebody just died, I might not want to talk about how great their life was and like remember all those stories that talking about them might hurt my heart even more, because now I have to again remember they're not here still, and I'm remembering these stories. So maybe it's a timing thing. Like, let me have my moment of feeling all the shit of whatever that is for everybody, and then we can have a celebration of life. I think maybe there's an issue. I don't know. I'm finding myself, the older I get and the more involved with this whole grief world, that the process that a lot of people, and I'm noticing that some people now are leaning towards not doing these type of things, like the mass and the services and all of those things, funerals, wakes, tending to not do that. I personally am leaning farther away from them than ever, only because of this kind of thing. They seem really scripted, really full of expectations of what people are supposed to wear, how they're supposed to look, what they're supposed to talk about. It's not human and natural at all, for me anyway, to do these things. I feel like somebody dies, do whatever you have to do, and then let the emotions be what they're going to be. Everybody has their process, their time of doing it, however they're going to do it. Let it be whatever it's going to be. Grieving and mourning are two different things. And I think that's what, Alec, you meant, right? Like, grieving is an internal process. It goes on internally. My emotions, what I'm feeling, what's the relationship? Is it complicated? There's a whole layer of things that we have to deal with when we talk about grieving. Mourning is what we do outwardly. That's when you see the tears. But just because you don't see tears doesn't mean somebody's not going through it internally and grieving. So there's another level of misunderstanding that goes on in our society, right? Like, we could, all four of us could go to a wake and 3 of us could be crying and 1 of us could not be. And that one is going to be silently judged. Oh, they must be okay. Either they're okay or they're not affected at all. That doesn't mean that at all. If I'm the one not crying, I could be full of inner turmoil and distraught internally. Just because my body's not releasing the tears doesn't mean I'm not going through it. But I'm a big proponent of letting tears flow. I am virtually unaffected if somebody is crying in front of me. I don't get uncomfortable. I don't even offer a tissue because they're allowed to be here and they should be here. It's a cleansing way of just letting that energetic, emotional energy flow through. So yeah, I could talk about this for fucking ever. And I think we all know that. And I am really, really passionate when somebody tries to silence a natural human emotion from, losing a connection with someone who is important to you. I don't know.
I think what you said, oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I think what you said is really important about the timing. And I think that's what the priest was trying to say. Now is the time to deal with whatever you feel like. Don't pretend. And things will change over time. So the timing of, because I see a trend lately where people say somebody died even young and then let's celebrate them. And the same way that in the old days everybody came in black, now the thing is, oh, please come in colorful clothes. I see what they're trying to do, but what if you feel like really grieving and mourning on the day because it just happened? In Ireland, funerals are really quick, usually within 3 days. And then somebody says, but then they make this rule, but come this way and be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes to emotion and how you deal with loss and grief, it's so individual. Why do we put rules around it? Why can we not just do whatever we feel doing, especially in the first 3 days? So yeah, Erica, I'm a bit with you there. The rule keeping, the this is the way we're doing, and everybody has to join in. And I think this is where the priest actually, first time I heard somebody say, don't feel you have to. We all grieve differently. Do whatever you feel you need to do to deal with your loss, with the emotions and everything which comes with it. And I thought it was really refreshing.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that narrative is, someone at least is trying to change the narrative around that. It's like you said, it's giving permission, but I think we each need to give ourselves permission to do whatever it is feels best for us to be doing in that moment around whatever it is that's happening. Like even, do I look okay? I'm going to a wake. How's what I'm wearing? And my answer now is, it's not a fashion show. I don't think anybody gives a shit what you're wearing. Your presence is more important. Being there, if you want to be there to support and to show your respects, that's all that matters. What you're wearing doesn't matter. If somebody wants to comment or judge, that's their problem. But let them do it. To me, it's not the clothing that matters. It's the emotional experience that matters.
Gabby mentioned about men, be strong. You're a man. Don't show your emotion. We know from suicide prevention and mental health campaigns and things, the Boys Cry Too movement. There are a lot of myths that go with how we should be when someone dies. And I think you would probably have a little tirade about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, is this the goal, to have Erica go off and pop off on this episode today? Because there's myths out there, but we hear them. They are so built in and ingrained in our society that we could probably hear them in the course of any conversation we have with anybody about literally anything. And at least one of the myths is going to show up, like the be strong one. That shows up everywhere. Why the fuck and who the hell thought it was a good idea to say, well, you got to be strong now. I mean, your dad just died, but be strong. Why? Like, why? And how are you expecting me as a human person to have the energy and the desire to be strong? Whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. It makes zero sense. And it's a ridiculous expectation and requirement to put on another human when they're experiencing distraught, emotional pain. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And it's just one of the many, right? There's a million. There's a lot out there that I could probably hear in every conversation that's being had. And it's kind of sad, I think, that we have all been taught that this is the way it's supposed to be. And now we're facing like a problem in our society where people don't have any idea what their emotions even are because they have not been allowed to be expressed in the normal way when things happen to us. And even in things that are happy occasions, right? So it struck me that you said, grief and celebration, because you can be celebrating something and also feel those elements of grief at the same exact time. And nobody allows us to do that shit either. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. For example, I'm thinking of things like finishing university, having your big moment where you get your paper and now you have your master degree. But it's a big celebration and the whole party is planned and everything, but nobody's talking about you're just going to lose all, your friendships you had, the people you spent the last 5 years with every day, are all going all off somewhere else. You're probably only going to be able to talk to them every so often. Your entire life changes. Then the whole thing of maybe starting a job in a completely new town. You have no friends there. You don't know anyone. There's so much attached to it. But the only thing we concentrate on, let's have a big party. And I know it's a big achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, as a society with the pursuit of happiness, is it just that we only celebrate and allow one set of emotions while everything else is pushed away?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But our last episode, we spoke about the 3/3 of our lives, right? And the demographic that are in the third of their life. And when we talk about it, and all I can hear and feel is the amount of grief that is present in that third of life. Just because, right? That's retirement age. And there's another example of celebrations and people saying, woohoo, congratulations. Well, the person who's retiring feels that, but also feels, fuck, now what? Like, I've done this for 30 plus years. What am I supposed to do now? And it's not being able to know how to handle those emotions that possibly lead to people not having a long retirements because they don't know what to do with those emotions now. Like, we need education on this. We need space for this kind of thing. Any parent walking the planet feels grief literally constantly, right? Every stage your kid goes through is a new level, a new opportunity for grief to come. You're celebrating it because it's natural and positive growth. But shit, what do I do with this stuff now? Like, it's everywhere and it's present in every single thing any of us as humans do and experience. And somebody doesn't have to die for it to happen. And the more we talk about this, the better, because we all need permission to feel whatever the fuck we're feeling in the moment, learn how to process that, and then make good decisions based on that going forward.
What's scary is that, like, I think the last episode, Gabby brought it up. Well, we got a solution for that. We'll just make everybody go to 72 before they can retire. So don't worry. You don't have to worry about it. We got you covered. You can just work longer, right? And it's like, that's like so not the answer, right? It's like, let's live our lives. There's a piece of that this is the hard part, is figuring those pieces out and allowing yourself the space to grow and go through those hard thought pieces. And what is it? What is it that I want to release? What is it that I want to feel? What is it that I want to give back? What is it that I want? Like, we're so they say and this and everything's just put on us. When do we actually stop and say, what is it that I want to do? How do I want to move forward? Because we already got the program of what they said and how we should do it. Like there's a whole thing going on there, but it's like, let's not forget about ourselves and that we have a say in how we move through things. That's the empowerment piece that I look to go by, right? Rather than entertain whatever it is. Somebody's having a bad day and now they're poking me to try and get me to join in that, because sometimes people aren't the happiest when you're right there with them, right? But I have a say in what I do, and I don't have to join into that. I can choose to move through it my way. So there's, I don't know.
You know, you said something about it being hard. And as we're talking about, you know, this emotional thing, grief and like mourning and celebrate all of that stuff. I mean, I don't know. Is it that hard? We make it harder by limiting ourselves and like having rules on how we're supposed to do shit emotionally. I mean, right? Like if I'm in a state of, oh, my heart is devastated and heartbroken right now, but I don't have any place to really actively do it without being told that I either have to, you know, keep myself busy or be strong about it or go do something else to distract you or, you know, don't worry about it, in time it'll take place. Why can't I just be, let it happen? And then the hardness, like the difficulty kind of dissipates after that. It's like, if I just let it happen, it'll eventually happen. And then I can go forward. Because we're trying to constrain and do everything without being allowed to do it, it feels harder than it really necessarily has to feel, right? The pain itself is difficult and hard, but we're resilient animals, the human spirit is stronger than we give it credit for. So if we just witness and allow these emotions to happen in a safe way, that's it. We get through that pain. When that ends, we learn how to process that. We turn it into whatever we need to integrate it into. And then the next time we have an emotional experience again, we know how to do it. I think that the resistance of the emotional processing is what makes everything so damn hard.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a circumstance where you're a relatively young man, not really more than a boy, to be honest. You know, his father dies and he's told, well, you've got to be strong. You're the man of the family now. You know, if they've got a close bond, then he's got more than enough on his plate with the loss of his father. And I'm sure this goes the same way with mothers and daughters, but boys tend to be told you're the head of the family. What a burden to put on somebody, you know, oh, everybody's going to be watching to see how I deal with this. And, you know, I don't think there's anything more revealing for me than if I'm at a funeral service and someone has elected not to speak because they just know that they're not in that place. You know, it's heartbreaking to see somebody who is in immense emotional turmoil and distress trying to be brave and, you know, get through. All I've got to do is get through this thing that I'm going to read. Let somebody else read it. You know, pick the thing because it's meaningful and then sit there and sob your heart out because it's so meaningful, rather than trying to choke all those emotions down because people have an expectation that you'll do a thing. And it was always the case in almost all societies that anybody that had had a close loss, it was a year and a day. They will mourn for a year and a day, not in the sense of a rule, but in the sense of it's going to take them that long to come to terms with it. You know, we know the fog that grief puts on a brain. We know that grief and intense sadness will bring up health issues. So somewhere I think we lost our humanity in, and I don't want to use the word dealing, because that, in respecting other people's losses and the pain that they go through. It was not uncommon for, wearing black. They wore black for a year so that people knew they're in mourning, their thoughts are elsewhere. It wasn't uncommon for people to tear clothing or, shave their heads. And it took as long as it took for the hair to grow back, and people knew that they were in this phase of life. And I think also made allowance. They continued to make sure that they were looked after, that their welfare was seen. And we don't do that. We don't even know, most of us, if a neighbour has lost a close relative or something. So bringing back some compassion and some basic human qualities to this whole subject, and not having it as almost a taboo. Look at your North American culture, the paucity of time given.
3 days. 3 fucking days. 3 days. Something epic happened. You have 3 days to think about that. And then you have to come back and life resumes as normal. It's like, yeah, okay, I can show up, but life is not resuming as normal. My brain doesn't work. And I'm expending even more energy trying to just show up here as if I actually want to be here. Right? Kind of stuff is going on. We need a narrative change. It has to, it's got to change. I mean, none of us is well served to continue to not engage in these conversations, because we need a narrative shift to treat ourselves and each other with the commonest, most basic respect when it comes to emotional experiences.
Well, it makes for an interesting other conversation, because we started out talking about grief and sadness, but it's with everything in life and all the emotions. And this corporate world thing of you cannot bring your personal life to work. We're not robots. How can we leave personal things at home and pretend and work everything is hunky-dory? It doesn't work that way. And then they wonder why, people are ending up with depression and anxiety. That's because they're never allowed to talk about anything unless they're sitting with a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's ignored. Not only ignored, actually forbidden. You can't bring, maybe your mom just got sick. Yeah, but you have to leave that at home. You can't bring personal things into work. You have to function. And don't talk about that stuff, because that's personal. I mean, yeah, so who's left to talk to? A therapist.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why there's this almost sort of global picture image of every American has a therapist. And I know that probably isn't really true, but watching TV, reading books, hearing podcasts, it seems that way. Every American has a therapist. And maybe that's because everybody in America feels like they're not allowed to process their emotions in anything like a normal way, with the support of community and friends and family. I mean, there is almost nothing in the human experience that is not better attended to with community. It's key to trauma recovery. It's key to grief. And let's face it, trauma and grief are pretty much the underlying ingredient in every human issue. So what's lacking? Community, support, friendship.
Well, look, that corporate example that Gabby just gave, I could pull out maybe 3 myths that go with that, right? Like what we were speaking about. It's that whole be strong thing. I got to go to work and be strong. Like, no tears are going to come out of my face today because I'm strong at work. And it's that whole grieve alone myth. That's a huge one that, like you just touched on, Alec. We don't have community because we've all been taught to do it on our own. Nobody wants to see your tears, so do it by yourself. So we're taught to do that. So it's scary to then let somebody else witness you doing it. That's number one. And we're not taught how to witness somebody else doing it. So we have be strong, grieve alone, and stay busy, right? With work. You don't just go to work. You'll stay busy and do the things. What? It's all bullshit. It's all a bunch of shit. Don't get me going. I'm already going. Like, don't.
I was going to say, what do you mean get you going? You're, I think we will say goodbye for now, folks, and we will return in another episode to continue poking the bear that is Erica.
Great.
And also getting really deep into not looking at the data that our emotions provide for us. So on that note, apparently it's all shit. And until the next time, goodbye.